There's a threat when there wasn't any threat of danger against me. All of these feelings within me, it was like an explosion happening inside of my mind and inside my body. And in that moment, I thought it was a spiritual attack. Within myself, I felt completely out of control. Welcome back to my channel. My name is ᴄᴑɪᴜᴜ, aka The Relentless Boss. So there are over 100 plus perimenopause symptoms. I experience 30 plus menopause symptoms, and in this video I'm going to share with you 5 of the mental health symptoms I experience with perimenopause. The first symptom is depression, and I shared a full-length video going into more detail about the depression. Depression is not commonly associated with perimenopause, but there's studies that show that there's increasing numbers of women who experience mental health issues linked to perimenopause. And Black women are at a higher risk of developing these mental health symptoms of perimenopause. Black women are also more susceptible to experiencing perimenopause earlier, which means that we experience the symptoms for longer and more often than not without any medical intervention at all. And this is one of the things that I really want to change, which is why I'm doing these videos, to raise awareness and to talk about menopause, to remove the stigma and the taboo of speaking about menopause. I was speaking to my auntie the other day about menopause, and she made this statement.
Hey, Emma, don't talk about that word. Don't mention that word. We don't want to hear that M word. Please, don't talk about it.
So you see, this is the stigma that we are having to deal with. And this is why these videos are so important. Us talking about our experiences, what we are actually feeling within our bodies, within our minds, going through this midlife transition. It is super important that we talk about it, that we share it, that we don't suffer in silence. Because when you don't talk about something, when you don't speak about what you are experiencing, how are you going to get a solution to your problem? How are we going to have better understanding about menopause, how it affects us, how it affects our daily lives, how it impacts our relationships, our careers, our businesses, our purpose? It impacts every area of life. The second symptom of menopause that I experienced was extreme anxiety. I am not an anxious person. I honestly consider myself not to be an anxious person. This anxiety was a feeling of anxiety and fear mixed together, of something bad is going to happen. It was like doom and gloom. It was like worrying excessively over minor details, over minor little things that usually I would not worry about. On a normal day-to-day, I would not worry about these things. But during this season, this period, I just found myself completely overwhelmed by feelings of anxiety from nowhere. They came from suddenly, like overnight. It just felt so overwhelming. It felt like everything around me was just falling on top of me. And I just couldn't understand why I was feeling that way. There was no explanation. There was nothing in regards to my circumstances that could have triggered the extent of the anxiety. It was completely life altering because it really shifted my thinking, my interactions with people, and I just became very sort of like antisocial. I became reclusive. I just didn't want to be around people because I just felt anxious all the time. I was always thinking that something bad was going to happen, an accident was going to happen. It was just a very dark place. I had no idea that anxiety was a symptom of perimenopause. So at the time, I did not correlate my feelings of anxiety with perimenopause. So anxiety is described as feelings of fear, dread, and uneasiness. It might cause you to sweat, to feel restless, to feel tense, to have a rapid heartbeat. It can be a normal reaction to stress. It can also, for example, you might feel anxious when faced with a difficult problem at work, before taking a test, or before making an important decision. In my experience, it was none of those things. So there was no particularly out of the ordinary stress that could have triggered that anxiety. The anxiety felt like it had come from nowhere. One day I woke up, I just was feeling anxious every single day. It affected every area of my life. The anxiety then led to panic attacks. I recall always hearing people talking about panic attacks and having completely no idea what panic attacks were. Even when people described the feeling of panic attacks, what actually happened to them, it just didn't resonate with me because I'd never experienced it. Until one day, I literally woke up into a panic attack. My mind was racing. Within myself, I felt completely out of control. Extreme feelings of anger, anxiety, feelings of like there's a threat when there wasn't any threat of danger against me. All of these feelings within me, it was like an explosion happening inside of my mind and inside my body. And in that moment, I thought it was a spiritual attack. I prayed and then I decided I was going to go for a walk. And I've heard it said that when you have a panic attack, one thing that you can do to ease the feelings of panic is to go and do exercise. And I know for those of you who are watching who have experienced panic attacks, in the moment of actually experiencing a panic attack, you're not going to think, I want to exercise when you're actually going through a panic attack. You're not going to think, okay, let me just go and do some exercise. No, you're not going to think that. But in the moment when it happened to me, I just thought, let me just get out of the house. Let me get some fresh air. Let me get outside. And I did. And what I did was I listened to some music. I listened to some worship music. And I walked and I walked and I walked and I walked. And as I was walking, the feelings were still there, very strong. It felt like there was dynamite within. That's how it felt. That's the only way that I can describe it to you for you to understand. It felt like there was dynamite just exploding within me, inside my physical body and inside my mind. And I just kept walking and listening to the worship. And after about 30 to 45 minutes, the feelings of panic began to subside. Okay, so panic attacks is a sudden episode of intense fear that triggers severe physical reactions when there is no real danger or apparent cause. And this is a real symptom of perimenopause that I think many women are not aware of. Many women are experiencing panic attacks and have no idea that it's actually a symptom of perimenopause. So you could actually be experiencing these symptoms and not be aware that you're going through perimenopause at this time. And I've mentioned before some of the studies that have found that women were experiencing some of these perimenopause symptoms that I've mentioned, and they had no idea that it was a symptom of perimenopause that is not spoken about enough is flat mood. Mood refers to significant reduction or absence of emotional expression, often described as flat. This means an individual might not show outwardly visible emotions through facial expressions, body language, or voice inflection. For me, how that played out is I was going on holiday, and usually I am really excited about traveling. I love traveling, and it was a special occasion as well because it was my mum's birthday. And so we were going to, it was my mum, my sister, and my niece, and we were going to Cyprus. And usually I'm really excited about going away, traveling to new countries. It was my first time in Cyprus, and this was meant to be a really amazing trip with my family, and I love spending time with my family. However, throughout the whole entire trip, it was 5 nights. Throughout the whole trip, I just had this flat mood. I was not happy. I would definitely say it was a bit more towards the sad side in terms of feelings. There was no excitement. No matter how I tried, I could not conjure up any feelings of happiness or joy. I just felt completely devoid of joy, completely devoid of happiness for no apparent reason, especially when the occasion called for usually would bring about joy, excitement, happiness. None of those feelings would materialize. And it wasn't as if I was on my period, or, usually when I'm on my period, sometimes I might be a bit moody. But this flat mood was, the only way that I can describe it is it was like a feeling of emptiness, a completely devoid of any emotion to reflect the situation and the occasion. And this flat mood went on throughout the whole trip, and even when I came back. And during the trip, there was one particular day where I had a combination of flat mood, anxiety, and I had a full-blown panic attack and had to stay in the bed for the whole day. And the day that I had to stay in bed I was supposed to be going on an excursion with my family, but I just couldn't go because I was just having all of these emotions exploding within me. Flat mood is something that I think is not spoken about enough when it comes to the perimenopause symptoms. To me, I would say it's a feeling of, I felt like I'd lost my joy. I felt like I'd lost my joy, and every single day was like that. So it's not like when you have PMS and you're coming up to your period and you're feeling down or you're feeling low. Maybe you have low mood. You feel a bit moody, not in the mood to really talk to people or be around people. And then when your period comes, it subsides. No, this feeling is constant. It's just constant every day. You feel that way. You feel unhappy. You feel sad. You feel low. You have no particular emotion in regards to things that usually would make you happy, usually would give you joy. You lose all interest in the things that you usually enjoy, the people you enjoy, the environments you enjoy. I stopped walking, and I absolutely love walking. Walking is one of my pastimes. I absolutely, like, anyone who knows me knows how much I love to walk. I can walk for like 2 hours, 3 hours, especially in nature. If it's a really nice environment, I am thriving and I'm loving my walk. But that completely got thrown out of the window when I was experiencing this flat mood. I just had no desire at all to walk and no desire to be in nature. It didn't bring me joy anymore. My joy it just felt like my joy had just been completely gone. Flat mood is definitely one of those symptoms that can really impact you adversely when it comes to perimenopause. And we do need to talk about it more because more women are experiencing this. And if you have experienced any of the symptoms that I've mentioned so far, please let me know in the comments what symptoms you've experienced and how they affected you. And what did you do to try and remedy it? What solutions have you found to help you with any of these symptoms? The number 5 symptom that I want to talk about is brain fog. Of all of the symptoms that I've mentioned in this video, brain fog was actually the worst. It completely shut me down. In my video where I spoke about depression and I spoke about what that did, depression was the number 1 worst of the symptoms that almost took me out.
But brain fog?
Brain fog, my goodness. Brain fog, for those who do not know what brain fog is, perhaps you've never experienced it, or perhaps you've heard of it and you have some idea of what people say brain fog is defined as. Brain fog is a medical term that describes a range of cognitive difficulties that can impact a person's ability to think clearly, focus, and pay attention. It can feel similar to the effects of stress or sleep deprivation. The brain fog that I experienced was a combination of not being able to think clearly, not being able to concentrate, not being able to focus, anxiety, panic attack. Just to give you an imagery what brain fog actually felt like, it felt like someone had put a vacuum inside my head and they were trying to literally suck my brain out of my head. That's how it felt physically. And it felt like I had something on top of my head here, a really heavy weight right here, and it just wouldn't go away. And when this brain fog came on, it would literally just completely floor me. I would not be able to do anything. I recall there was a day when I had a really important meeting that I had to go to, and all of a sudden this brain fog came on and I was just like, my goodness, what am I going to do? I had to go to the meeting, and it was, in my mind, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster because I couldn't get my words out properly. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't concentrate on what the other people were saying. Everything was just jumbled up. And one thing that I noticed through that season is that there were certain foods that would trigger brain fog. During the whole process of me actually learning about perimenopause and the symptoms that I was experiencing, and trying to find solutions to minimize the symptoms and then eventually completely eradicate them, I realized that there were certain foods that I would eat that would trigger the symptoms. One food in particular that I would eat that would trigger brain fog was porridge oats. I just don't know why that is, because all my life I've been eating porridge oats and never had any issues with porridge oats. But for some reason, at this time in my life, my body's like, nope, we're not doing porridge oats anymore. We're not eating that anymore. And I had to listen to my body because the brain fog was so extreme and just impacted me so adversely that I had to stop eating porridge oats. There was a number of times where I'd be like, let me just try a little and see what happens. And I did. And literally I had brain fog for a whole week. So that taught me a big lesson, that I need to listen to my body. And we do need to listen to our bodies. When it comes to being in midlife and going through perimenopause, nutrition plays a major role in how we menopause, whether we're going to menopause well or whether we're going to menopause badly. So we do need to be mindful of what we're eating, because our nutrition affects our hormones. And the way our hormones work and the way our hormones function in our bodies, in our brain, is interdependent on what we eat, what we're putting in our mouth. So nutrition is a major key to helping us to really go through menopause thriving. What I did to help my situation, because I've mentioned this in previous videos and I'm going to have to do another video really just breaking things down. But I was dismissed by 3 doctors, and I was told that I'm not going to be put on HRT, hormone replacement therapy. So I had to figure out a way of getting rid of these symptoms. The first thing I did was intermittent fasting. The intermittent fasting cleared my palate and helped me to transition into a plant-based diet. I realized that some of the poultry, the meat that we are eating is pumped with chemicals, it's pumped with hormones, it's pumped with estrogen. When we consume it, we also consume whatever these animals have been injected with, and that disrupts our hormones. So I decided to go plant-based. I stopped eating chicken, I stopped eating eggs, I stopped eating red meat. It really did make a massive difference. I'm not saying to you go plant-based. What I will say is you can try it for a season, and I would say do it for 21 days, because 21 days you can get a good picture of how that diet affects your body, your mind, your well-being, your overall well-being, your hormonal balance. That's what's worked for me. I have a whole entire menopause toolkit, and it's still evolving. I'm still building it as I go along because I'm learning new things. If you would like access to that menopause toolkit, click the link down below and let's have a one-on-one and get you some solutions to your menopause symptoms. As I say, and I always say, I'm not a medical practitioner. This is not medical advice. This is me sharing my story with you and what's helped me. In the first instance, consult a medical practitioner. But before you consult that medical practitioner, make sure you have done your due diligence. You have educated yourself. You have read the studies. You have learnt all that you can before you go to your doctor, so that you can be fully empowered and equipped to let your doctor know what you believe is happening with you and what you believe could be possible solutions for you. Because not all of the medical, in fact, most of the medical practitioners are not trained in menopause, are not trained in perimenopause. So educate yourself, inform yourself before you go and speak to your doctor so that you can get the best possible outcome. So if any of this resonated with you, please let me know down below in the comments. Remember to like, share and subscribe to this channel, and let's raise awareness about these perimenopause symptoms, and I'll see you in the next video.